Bore da, John. Cwsfyn eto, just isio...
Just to start again, we want to check that you've chosen the right language for interpretation.
Recording in progress.
No. Ronnie, President.
This usual declaration that this meeting is being broadcasted live and it'll be available later on. If you're not happy with that, leave the meeting now. Over to you, Elwyn. Thank you very much and a warm welcome to you all here. We'll make a start with the apologies. I think it was Ian Jones, who apologised. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to declaration of interest.
Albert?
I want to declare an interest in item 5 and 3. I'll leave the meeting. Thank you. We'll move on to the minutes. I will propose that they're correct. Can anybody second that? Are there any matters arising from the minutes? From any of the officers or anybody?
Yes, Chairman. There's a couple of updates. In relation to item 5, there's a query about Werner Pfister in Bond B. You'll note this committee that this actual application has been removed from the section 106 list because the application has been refused. It is intended that a site meeting will be held with the applicant for next week to progress on that, but the application has been refused. The other item relates to the section 6, and there's a situation about an application relating to MP 558-263B. Just to advise that the website is correct. I think there's been a confusion that there was subsequently a further application under C, which had a variation from the previous refusal, whereby it subsequently approved. So I think the website is correct and all the details are updated all one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to raise anything? If not, we'll move on to item number 4, Eryri Local Development Plan. Jonathan, I think, is presenting on this. No, Sean will take this. Oh, Elliw first. Good morning, all. So the report before you today is the annual monitoring report for the local development plan. The purpose of the report today is for you as members to discuss and approve the content before we go on to present it to the Welsh Government at the end of the month. As you're all aware, the aim of the monitoring report is to show to what extent the strategy of the plan is being achieved, how the policy is working, or if there's a gap there. Also, as members, a review of the scheme was held and I consulted with the stakeholders back in April 2023 and May 2023, and the review report established the need to hold a full review of the scheme. And that scheme was adopted and published back in June last year. So this is the 5th annual monitoring report since we've adopted the plan. Sean, who is in the headquarters today, is going to go through the main findings, and I will come in at the end just to explain a little bit more about the next steps. So I'll hand over to you now, Sean. Thank you, Elliw. in terms of the main messages and findings from this annual monitoring report, no significant developments were allowed in the park, and all the planning applications received since adopting the local developments are according to the strategy. So in terms of completion of housing applications, they've increased slightly this year compared to previous years. They're still lower than targets, and obviously we still need to review the policies in terms of the plan. Also, of the 45 new residential properties that planning permission was given between 2023 and 24, 20 of those to do with affordable housing. So this is substantially higher than the numbers during previous years, but still lower than the targets that we've set for ourselves in the fifth monitoring year. And the number of affordable housing given permission to is smaller than the previous years. And still, it's appropriate to review that. Permission was given to 18 applications in terms of tourism during this monitoring period, including developments. Sorry, I missed that. Change of land use and changing buildings into self-catering and holiday homes. And also a plan was giving an announcement for a catering building. And there's a mistake and we need to update this. Two were approved to improve local facilities, playing field for children in Aberdyfi, and permission to adapt the church to a community setting in Llanfestiniog. And there were no significant changes at all to affect other policies in the plan. Thank you, Sean. I'll just add too that there are slightly formatting changes that need to be done to the report before it'll be in its final form. So in terms of the next steps, as you can see from the reports, the evidence shows significant changes in the context, that changes have taken place on a national level to policies and legislation. As I mentioned previously, the review report was adopted last year, and as you're aware, in December 2023, it was decided to delay the process of the local development plan because staff resources went towards the preparatory work regarding Article 4. The report also includes a draft timetable, a reviewed one for revising the plan, and we'll see that the completion agreement will come before members in March next year. They will then go and consult more widely in the spring. In October 2025, we will be calling for possible sites, and then we'll be forming the strategy. We're also showing the steps, indicative plans, and when the plan is likely to be adopted. This is obviously a draft timetable, and we must consult on it and get the agreement of the Welsh Government later on. So I hope this gives you a little bit of taste of the steps ahead of us. And the recommendation today is for you as members to discuss and approve the content on the monitoring report, taking into consideration any additional changes agreed by members. Thanks very much. Thank you, Elliw. Has anybody got any question or comments that they'd like to make on the document? If not, can somebody propose? Yes, Naomi's got a hand up. And Delyth. Delyth first.
Dach chi mynd gynta?
Iawn, diolch.
Ie, sori, ddim clod iawn. Diolch fawr, Elliw, am y gwaith.
Thank you, Elliw, for all that work. It's very long documents and very detailed, and a lot of work has gone into it. One of the things that is obvious is, I wouldn't say underachievements, but we're not reaching our figures in terms of affordable housing, which is very important in creating a viable environment in the park. And what I see in the monitoring report is the fact that there's this recognition of that for some various reasons. But it says we're going to review the policy. But to me, it doesn't really give the true meaning of what that means. From what I can see from the lot of the reasons why there isn't more development in terms of affordable housing is that there's lack of land or suitable land, and also that the parcels of land that become available aren't viable economically for small companies, because larger companies obviously come here and develop. And the question that I have is, okay, we're talking about working with housing associations, but how much further work if there is no land? The housing association says we're not going to build because it's not cost effective to build 15 to 20 houses. We need to do more than just revise our policy? Do we need to do anything more, like working with Welsh Government in terms of reaching their affordable housing targets? I think reviewing a policy is a little bit, I think we need more strength. I haven't got any answers, but it's a question I want to ask because it's one of the main issues that shows that there is an underachievement, if you like. I don't like that word, not reaching targets, but that's my comments for the authority, not just for the officers. Thank you. Thank you. Elliw, do you want to answer that? Yes, I agree entirely with you, Delyth, and what you've drawn attention to. It is a concern that we have. There is concern that these smaller sites don't develop because housing associations want things to stack up financially. And there's a danger that I do get the feeling that the more rural areas do suffer because of that. We put our messages over to Welsh Government. As it happens at the moment, there is a piece of work being done. It will be like a guidance for building affordable houses in rural areas. And what we continue to say to them is how important it is that the extra funding comes to housing associations to ensure that these smaller sites stack up financially. Say now that the more funding comes for small rural developments. That background work is taking place. And I really hope that the housing associations are also sending those messages to the Welsh Government. Work is being done in terms of the community-led housing, that the community take more of a role. We've just funded a project officer in the Penachno area, for example, using funding, commuting funding, I think that is work is going on outside the planning system. I think we just need to carry on to look for new ways and put pressure for additional funding to make these small developments work. Thank you, Elliw. Does Delyth want to come back on that? No, I understand those points. I think my point is, I know that work does go on in the background, but up to what point do we draw attention to this as more of a campaign, if you like, that the park is seen as part of the solution, and that we don't just let these housing associations. There should be feeling of a more combined approach. We need more solutions for rural areas. I know conversations are taking place on official officer level and housing officers in housing associations, in local councils and the park. But I think we need to speak more with the ministers too. It's obvious that we're not changing policy and having conversations on those conversations are going to take more time. I think local interventions are good, but if the housing associations say we've got no funding to be developing on a smaller scale, well then their comment is going to go on they're going to give more attention to the larger developments that's going to bring in more money for them. I've got no answer, but this is just the start of the journey. This should be a start of the journey for us as an authority, because it's quite a substantial issue. Thank you, Delyth. Could I just come in briefly on one point? Obviously, it may be an obvious point, but the great opportunity is to have the review next year, when we'll be sitting round the table with the developments and with you as members. We'll be looking again at every development border within the park and looking at all housing developments in the plan, and we'll be assessing whether they're viable, are they working for everybody. That's the greatest opportunity. Obviously, Ashley was talking about the things we're trying to do in the context of the policy context that we're working within now, but with the review of the policy beginning of next year, that is the great opportunity for us to change things if required. Yes, there is another thing as well. Housing associations aren't going to build houses in open spaces. We need the... Naomi? Thank you, Elwyn. And thanks, Elliw and Delyth.
Say exactly the same thing about community-led housing. And I think one of the really interesting things is, do we have the right policies to prioritise community-led housing on the sites that are actually allocated? When you talk about the public participation for the new local plan, which is for next year, for example, I would want to see, and I'm really happy to help with this as a member, I would want to see us to have a meeting in every single community as far as possible to talk about what people want out of the local plan and to identify local need. So there will be people on lists, obviously, in need. So how do we match up that need with site allocation? And of course, you know, if it's just developers bringing forward the sites, they might not be in the right places where we have need. So we need to think about how those two interact in the creation of the plan. And then we need to have policies which basically promote community-led housing. So obviously, if you look back at the annual monitoring report, you can see that there's homes which are being converted for holiday accommodation. But I didn't see anything that we'd converted for social rent, for example, or, you know, so I'm thinking, well, you know, in those terms, we are able to give, and people are applying for conversion to holiday homes, but they're not applying for conversion for social rent or for entrance into that market. Now, is there something that we need to be doing in the policy, which is saying that this is actually our priority? And I think that's, as Delyth has said, it's like a really important discussion to have, and a reflection on the annual monitoring reports. What we've consented is that actually what people need in the park. But thanks very much for all the work, Ashley. It's really brilliant. Sorry for speaking English. Can't do Welsh, Danny.
Thank you. Does anybody want to respond to what Naomi's just said? Yes, I'll respond to that as well. I agree in terms of the fact that we need to adapt policies to encourage developments that meet the needs of the community in an innocent way, hopefully. And I think our hope as officers is to go out to communities, and work has been started where we'll be looking into making profiles, the profiles of communities and the placemaking behind that. So collating the information, looking at communities. So that is the plan. Thanks very much. Ivar? Yes, thanks very much. The question I have is a specific one regarding social housing grants. There is funding down in Cardiff to try and help the rural communities to expand. How much work has been done with housing associations working in cooperation with the authority to try and appoint areas of land and making use of this grant to move things forward? There is funding available and nobody is asking for it to move things forward. Thanks, Ivar. It's not our role as an authority to make an application for the funding. Obviously, it's the Housing Association that does that, but we are part of a group between housing authorities and housing associations, and we also sit on that group. And they designate the grants, and it's led by the housing authorities, isn't it? The grants funding is distributed by them, and that does take place. The concern that we have is that whether it happens enough in rural areas, in smaller communities, that's what we need to put more pressure for. We see on the coast, there's quite a large site in Colwyn Bay that's been developed now, and most of that funding. Sorry, I'm missing this. Money will be coming from this grant. But it's needed in rural areas. Thanks very much, John Peel.
John.
You're on mute, John. I'm sorry about that. Yes, there's lots of talk about houses for young people. You look at the statistics, there are far more people. 30 people have gone out of Meirion Dwyfor, and there are lots of people come in. We must have work. You can't talk about more houses. We need jobs to keep young people in these rural areas. We haven't created jobs for years in Meirion Dwyfor, and it's time we started doing that. It's then that you need houses for them to stay here. But if you look at the statistics about the people under 30 who have left Meirion Dwyfor, it's frightening, and the number of people coming in, and I think that is something basic. Without work, no language and no home. Thanks very much. Does anybody else want to speak? I can't see any hands up. Does anybody want to propose that we accept the recommendation? I think it's been proposed. Is there a seconder? Yes, it's been seconded as well. Can you all show that you're happy to accept it? It's been carried. And thanks to the officers for the report. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to the first planning application, land by Ffynnon Beino, Bala.
I just ran a screen.
I'll just share my screen here.
Item rhif 5.1.
Item number 5.1, an application NP 553-598C. Outline application with all details reserved for construction of a single dwelling, land near Ffynnon Beino, near Bala. Sorry, I missed that. It's to the southwest of Bala and to the north of Llyn Tegid. The development site has been located within. Access is available through a road near the A494. The application is being assessed in its second submission, which was previously refused by the authority through reserved powers, delegated powers in 2022. The application, as you see on screen, is to do with building. Sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing here. Although the application is asking for an outline planning, the indicative plans show a separate bungalow, which includes 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and living area, and 2 parking areas off the street, and it shows that the access is directly off. Sorry, I missed that. Here are a few photos showing the area where the development will take place. It shows the access and it shows the land as it stands at the moment. It shows the different kinds of houses that are there at the moment. As you can see, most of these are bungalows in the area. As I've mentioned, the application is a second application of a planning application refused by the authority. It was originally refused for two reasons. Because the proposal wasn't consistent with the street scene and affected the characteristics of the street scene in terms of the current map and how much they were was being developed, and it was believed that the application affected the location and the site from the local street. There was also lack of ecological information too. The main policies with this is the policy development 1 that notes the general principles nationally, and it was the nature of the developments had to go with the site and the environment. Following refusal of the previous application, a revised scheme was submitted for consideration, and the new scheme is deemed to be an improvement to the original scheme, whereby a bungalow of this scale and design will match that already built within the vicinity. It is considered that the information submitted to date is sufficient in determining that the proposal confirms with DP1. However, further details such as materials should be reserved. Parking arrangements can be sought at reserved. As I mentioned, the previous application was refused on the basis of lack of information regarding ecological issues, different to the previous application. An ecological review has been held by the applicants, and they came to the decision that there were no. Sorry, I'm missing it.
The translator's struggling to hear.
Sorry,
Is the microphone near? She's heard most of it. It's just breaking up now.
Yeah, okay, we'll carry on. In terms of the effect of the development on the special conservation area of the Dee River, the authority have held its biological assessment, and they've come to a positive conclusion that the development would not have an effect on the conservation area. That would be dependent on planning conditions. They consulted with NRW and they agreed with this conclusion. So the summary is, although all matters are being considered, indicative plans show a detached bungalow comprising of 2 bedrooms and a kitchen and living area, and it considered that this goes with the other houses in the direct area. It is deemed that the revised scheme of a modest bungalow at the site is in line with the development policy 1 of the ELDP, and that the development is sympathetic with the surrounding area, and it is unlikely to have an adverse impact on biodiversity and protected species at the site, in line with strategic policy D of the ELDP. The proposal is considered acceptable, and it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions recommended. And the conditions are on screen. Thanks very much. Any comments from anybody? Before that, can we remove the screen, please? Thanks very much. I can't see any hands. June's got a hand up. I'm willing to propose the recommendation because the only one who opposed that was the town council, and all those points have been answered by the statutory bodies. So I don't think we can't, and it is an outline plan, isn't it? second. So there's a proposer and seconder. Can everybody show that they're happy with that? Thank you, that's been carried. Before we move on, could I draw your attention to the fact that we have a new member of the working group with us, that is Eva. She's at the end there with blonde hair. Jonathan, do you want to elaborate? Yes, Eva is a new planning officer with us. She's a graduate trainee, so she is going to Cardiff every month with a master's course in the field of the environment and building. So we're very pleased to have her here. She's a very good officer. This is her first planning committee. Thank you. Thanks, Eva. I hope you'll be happy with us.
Aled, o ti ara di fyma na chdi? Na, os ga i reid diweddaredd i'r pwyllgor ar hwn, mae'r ymgeisydd wedi gofyn I dynnu'r cais o gohirio'r penderfyniad heddiw.
So the applicant has asked to defer the decision
postpone the
today.
decision today. The applicant has asked for more time to negotiate with the officer. So that is
So
up
it's up
to you
as a committee what you would like to do. I can advise you to accept that.
And maybe the main reason for that today is that Aled isn't around. He's failed to come in today. He's been unable to come in. So I would advise you as a committee to postpone this application and let the officer have further discussions with them. And we'll take the application back to the next committee, hopefully. I propose that we postpone until next time. Is there a seconder? Yes. Yes. Is everybody in favour of that? Can you show? That's been carried. I'm glad it's been carried because I don't think I could have introduced it instead of Aled. Thank you. We'll move on then to one Ron Fair, Maen Twrog.
Iawn, dyn mae Eva yn cymryd yr achos yma, dwi'n meddwl.
Eva is going to take this application, I think.
Yeah.
We're waiting for Albert to leave the room first. He has declared an interest.
Albert
has just left now. I'm sure Eva will explain this, but so there are two applications here, as you can see. One, the planning application, and the other one is a listed building application. So because they're almost the same, I think it's wise to treat them as one. Unless you've got, I don't think you have, but if you have got anything that you want to differentiate between the two, tell us and we'll deal them as one application, if that's all right with you. Everybody happy with that?
Iawn, Eva. Hwr chdi.
Diolch. So, gyntaf oll, fel mae Jonathan yn egluro, dwi'n neud lag oes wedi gilydd. So, item 5.3 a 5.4.
This is item 5.3 and 5.4. They're all to do with the same property, one run by Maen Twrog. Item 5.3 refers to NT 573 LB 208B. That is the first one for a listed building to do with the internal and external work to the property. Item 5.4 is NP 573 LB 208C. That is the planning permission that works in the curtain of the building. First of all, I want to draw your attention to the fact that there's one toilet, and I missed that on the building, and there are listed buildings on the two, and this needs to be sent to the committee because the applicant is related to a member of the board. These are for external doors and windows, and change windows, replastering of walls, and putting, new kitchens. The application to keep a shed and food storage, rebuild a wall, the internal wall, the current one. Putting new windows, Velux windows. And as you can see on screen, one Ron Fair sits at the end of the terrace in a high site within the village. The A4896 road runs through the middle of the centre and gives admission to the site, or you can use an unnamed road nearby. Regarding the listed building application, the changes need to be changed and the door and put a canopy at the front of the house. You'll see the comparison with the historic site and the new front door. The new windows are double glazed. The front door is in a similar style, the original one. And according to the agents, the doors and original and windows, the original ones, were performing badly with poor weather and lighting. The canopy above the door, sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing, and the agency has agreed that the canopy will be removed. This is the internal work. So the ground floor has been replaced and insulated and finished to the same height as the previous height, and this again because of problem with damp, and the walls and ceiling will be plastered. So the work has been justified in terms of improving the building and the general condition. This is to do with item 5.4. For in terms of context, these are the photos before the work was completed. So from the back door area dating from the 16th century, you can see the windows in the roof. These are the original ones, but these will be changed in size. And this is the garden work after the work has been completed. They put wooden decking and new windows, a garden shed and storage, and they're going to change the windows. They've changed at the back, the windows. And the food storage is to the west and to the left. You can see the work at the bottom of this. The level is on a. I'm sorry, I'm really having difficulty hearing.
So, in
terms of assessing the work, it's been item 5.4. Usually, the authority asks for a review of the condition to justify the need to change. In this case, obviously, this wasn't possible because the original fabric has been lost. However, the photos on screen earlier show the poor condition of the door and the windows in 2015. I think this is, you can read this on screen. It doesn't go with the policy developments. Regarding the inner work, the plastering and changing the ground floor, there is no, this has been carried on, this hasn't affected the character of the building. On top of that, the justification for the work in terms of improving the condition of the house is fair. The windows and the roof are having a detrimental effect on the building. On the other hand, the canopy above the door is unnecessary and doesn't go with the character of the building, so that this element needs to be removed to coincide with the local development plan. Overall, in accordance with the national development policies, the alterations in terms of the conservation, it doesn't have an effect the character of the listed building nor the wider setting and conservation area. Moving now on to planning. Even though the edging and terrace has been completed from materials that coincide with the local development plans, you can read this on screen actually.
Fodd bynnag yn yr achos hwn, mae'n bosib lleihau effaith y ddatblygiad trwy cyflwyno dulliau lliniarydd, megis plannu ac agor pren i llwyddiant naturiol. The hope is that
the wood will be
The garden shed is
effective over
located
time. The
directly
garden
behind
shed
the
is
building
located
and is largely hidden from
directly
view.
behind the
Its
property
height,
and is
form and
largely
scale are
hidden from
compatible with the
view.
character and capacity of the sites.
And the timber
The
lock
food
store
storage
has minimal
effect.
impact
In the
on the
summer,
setting. In the summer, wildlife
wildlife-
is likely to be screening to further reduce its visibility.
Sorry, I'm really having
Biodiversity
problems here.
enhancement measures being proposed.
Additionally, the timber
Also, the biodiversity.
Oh, sorry.
So it appears the translation isn't working then. Yeah, it was the second translator taking over from the first. So, does it appear to be working now, the translation? Are you hearing one voice?
We can hear one voice.
I'll leave now and let Anne take over.
So this is a second translator taking over.
Yeah.
So additionally, the biodiversity enhancement measures have been proposed for bats and bird boxes and so on. And there have been comments on the application and recommendations made for the boxes and so on October the 13th. There had a biodiversity improvements plan, and there are conditions for the biodiversity, and there should be screens set up as well.
So the
internal work does not have adverse effect, and the decking and fences from the outside don't detract from the listed building landscape. This can be mitigated through screen planting, natural weathering of timber impact. Okay, thank you very much. Any comments from anybody?
All right, okay.
We just want the office's recommendation, please. So the recommendation is to grant listed building consent subject to the following conditions, and to grant planning permission with the conditions listed on screen. Thank you very much. Any comments from anybody? Well, before opening it up for comments, there is one mistake in the report, which is the applicant's name on page 229. The applicant's name is Aaron Jones. So Aaron Roberts is should be the correct name. So if we could just please minute that the correct name is Aaron Roberts. So we'll move on now to the. Does anyone? Edgar has got his hand raised. Yes, I propose the recommendation. Would anyone like to second that? Joan has seconded that. Okay. So John Peer, would you like to say anything? No. I propose to second the plan. Anybody else? If not, we'll put it to the vote. Well, I'd just like to thank Eva for her report. Very neat. Thank you very much, Eva. So are we all in favour? Please show. Good, that's been carried. There we are. Thank you very much. So that's the planning applications finished. Yes, we better bring him back in. Wherever he's gone, isn't it? I almost forgot about that. Right, well, let's go on then to page 265. These are 106 agreements for information. 266, 267. Any questions there at all? If not, we'll move on to awaiting ecological information. For information again there. And then,
Louise.
Yeah, it's the footpath between Towyn and Aberdyfi. I know that people have been campaigning for a long time to see this completed. Any news on that?
No, apologies, no, that there's no update on that, but I can certainly ask the officer dealing with the application provide an update directly.
Which one was that, Louise? Which application was that?
It was NP5/50/647B.
Paddy Allen.
Which page, Louise?
First one. It's not numbered. Why is it numbered? 269.
269. Oh, we haven't got there yet.
Oh. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
Iawn, disgwyl gwybodaeth ecolegol.
Right, awaiting ecological information, agent or anything there? If not, let's move over to 270. Nothing there?
Okay, Edgar.
Edgar. Yes, with Bron Fedwych a Rhydd.
Again, I would have to ask the officer in relation to an update on that one, but I can advise that Richard Thomas has actually been on sickness leave for some time, for the last month. So we are looking at getting planning applications that are allocated to Richard. We are getting additional resource in to progress them. So hopefully I'll be able to provide an update to you. I can provide that to you directly.
Yeah, I was told I'd get an update last time. I didn't know he'd been off film. Okay, thank you.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Awn ymlaen felly I penderfyniadau dirprwyedig.
We'll move on now then to the delegated decisions. These are applications approved. These are for information. Any questions? 273, 274, 275, and 276. Nothing there. So we now have the refused applications, 277, 278, 279, and 280. There we are, I think, unless anyone has any questions there. Just one comment before closing. I forgot to say at the beginning, Iona Roberts, the head, isn't here today. She's unwell. I should have said that at the beginning. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, all of you. So we have another committee meeting. I think we'll need to reset things up here a bit. So I would suggest we begin at 11:05. Right. Thank you very much.
Is it the same scores on the doors to get into the meeting? I haven't been given notification of the numbers. Sorry.
No,
No, there's a different link.
Oh.
You will have received an email from Avion with a link to the meeting, to the working group.
I didn't. So, I mean, normally you get them off Anwin. Obviously, Anwin's gone. So, can anybody message me them or?
Yeah, we can re-forward the link. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Welwn chi toc.
We'll see you shortly. Bye-bye.
Iawn, diolch.
Fysa ti'n neud rhyw fath hefo'r link i'r gweithgor aelodau, please?